Jannik Sinner just survived the exact type of match that used to destroy future champions. Not the easy ones. Not the highlight reel performances, the ugly ones. The exhausting ones. The matches filled with controversy, momentum swings, physical struggles, rain delays, pressure, and one opponent refusing to go away. Because after nearly 24 hours of chaos in Rome, Sinner finally defeated Daniil Medvedev and moved one step closer to something Italy hasn't seen since 1976. An Italian Open champion from Italy. And honestly, the way he got there may matter even more than the result itself. Because this semi-final felt like a psychological test disguised as a tennis match. Everything about it became uncomfortable. The physical issues, the medical timeout drama, the rain suspension, the overnight delay, the tension with Medvedev. This was not smooth domination from the world number one. This was survival. And somehow Sinner still found a way through. That's what makes this victory feel different. At the beginning of the semi-final, none of this looked possible. Friday night started with Sinner playing terrifying tennis. The first set honestly felt unfair at times. The serving was flawless, the movement explosive, and the baseline aggression completely overwhelming. Medvedev looked trapped immediately. The crowd inside Rome could sense it too. Every Sinner winner felt louder than normal because fans knew history was getting closer. The atmosphere around him right now feels bigger than a normal tournament run. Every match carries expectation. Every victory adds to the growing belief that this might officially become the Sinner era in men's tennis. And for one set, it looked inevitable again. Then Medvedev changed everything. That's what makes him such a dangerous opponent even now. He understands chaos better than almost anyone on the ATP Tour. When matches become uncomfortable emotionally, Medvedev suddenly becomes incredibly difficult to beat. He started extending rallies, changing rhythm, dragging Sinner physically into deeper exchanges. Slowly, the momentum shifted, and suddenly the world number one looked vulnerable for the first time in weeks. That second set was fascinating psychologically because Sinner's energy visibly dropped. Between points, he bent over trying to recover physically. The movement looked heavier. The explosive shot-making from the opening set disappeared. Medvedev sensed weakness instantly. That's elite-level instinct. He kept applying pressure until the match transformed from clean attacking tennis into a brutal physical battle. Then came the moment everyone started talking about. Sinner called for the medical team. Immediately, controversy exploded. Medvedev clearly believed Sinner was receiving treatment related to cramps, something players technically are not supposed to receive medical treatment for under ATP rules. Television commentators openly debated the situation. Social media erupted. Fans argued endlessly online. And right in the middle of all that noise, Sinner still had to somehow finish the match. That pressure is enormous, especially at home, because suddenly every movement gets analyzed, every recovery gets questioned, every emotional reaction becomes part of the story. Many players mentally collapse during situations like that. Sinner didn't. That's important. Even physically struggling, even dealing with controversy, he came back swinging in the third set Friday night. He regained the break advantage. The crowd exploded again, and it looked like he was finally pulling away. Then the rain arrived, and somehow this semi-final became even stranger. The downpour in Rome created total chaos. Players slipped. Commentators criticized the umpire for allowing play to continue too long. Sinner himself questioned whether the conditions were safe enough to continue. Eventually, the match got suspended overnight with Sinner leading. Now think about how difficult that situation actually is mentally. You're leading a massive semi-final. You've already survived momentum swings and physical issues. You finally regain control. Then suddenly you're told to stop and sleep on it overnight. That's brutal psychologically, because there's no closure, no emotional release, just tension. And Medvedev is exactly the type of opponent who becomes dangerous in suspended matches because he thrives when rhythm disappears and uncertainty increases. So when Saturday arrived, the pressure felt enormous, not just because of the scoreline, because of the meaning. If Sinner wins Rome, he becomes the first Italian man since 1976 to win this tournament. That's legendary territory in Italian tennis history. On top of that, he's now extending a ridiculous Masters 1000 winning streak that already surpassed Novak Djokovic's previous record. 34 straight Masters victories if he wins the final. That's absurd. And honestly, records like that start changing how players view you psychologically. Opponents begin entering matches already feeling pressure because your consistency starts looking inevitable. But Medvedev still pushed him harder than almost anyone recently. That's why the final moment Saturday morning felt so tense. Even after the overnight delay, Medvedev refused to disappear quietly. He saved 2 match points immediately after play resumed. That matters emotionally because it forced Sinner to stay calm under pressure instead of cruising comfortably across the finish line. Again, championship mentality. And eventually Sinner closed the door. Only 15 minutes after the restart, it was over. But the emotional weight of the semifinal felt much heavier than 15 minutes because this match revealed something important about where Sinner is now as a competitor. He no longer needs perfect conditions to win. That's terrifying for the rest of the ATP Tour. Early in a superstar's career, dominance usually depends heavily on rhythm and confidence. If momentum shifts or physical discomfort appears, performances often collapse quickly. True champions evolve beyond that stage. They learn how to survive ugly matches too. This semi-final looked ugly at times, and Sinner still won. That's a massive warning sign heading into Roland Garros, because clay court Grand Slams are built on suffering. Nobody cruises through 2 weeks in Paris without emotional and physical battles. The eventual champion usually survives multiple ugly matches somewhere along the way. This Rome semi-final may become incredibly valuable preparation mentally, especially because Medvedev forced Sinner into uncomfortable territory repeatedly. Now waiting in the final is Casper Ruud. And honestly, that matchup feels fascinating. Ruud quietly destroyed Luciano Darderi 6-1, 6-1, while the other semi-final turned into complete chaos. Physically, emotionally, and tactically, the Norwegian enters the final in a much calmer position. That matters. Ruud understands clay court tennis beautifully. His movement is elite. His forehand becomes heavier and more dangerous on dirt, and emotionally, he rarely panics during long physical matches. He's one of the steadiest players in the world mentally, which means Sinner's recovery becomes a huge factor now. Because let's be honest, the Medvedev semi-final looked draining, not just physically, emotionally too. And that's what makes this final so interesting. Sinner carries momentum, confidence, crowd energy, and history on his side. Ruud carries freshness, tactical patience, and probably less emotional pressure. That combination could produce an incredible final. Now here's the bigger conversation nobody can ignore anymore. Sinner's dominance is starting to feel historically significant. Not just because he wins, because of how consistently he handles pressure now. Breaking Djokovic's Masters winning streak record is not normal. Surviving controversy and chaos while still reaching finals is not normal either. We may be watching the moment where Sinner fully separates himself from the rest of the ATP field psychologically. And honestly, the timing feels perfect for Italy. Italian tennis has waited decades for a superstar capable of carrying the sport nationally at this level. The expectation around Sinner now feels enormous because fans genuinely believe he can dominate this era. Rome has become emotional because of that belief. Every point feels bigger. Every victory feels historical. And if he beats Ruud in the final, the celebration inside Italy could become unforgettable. Still, Ruud absolutely has a chance. That's important to remember. Because while Sinner has looked unstoppable recently, this semi-final also revealed vulnerability. The physical struggles were real. The cramps discussion was real. The emotional pressure was intense. Ruud will notice all of it. And unlike Medvedev, Ruud thrives in slower, grinding clay court exchanges naturally. If he drags Sinner into another exhausting physical battle after everything that already happened in the semi-final, things could become very dangerous for the world number one. That's why Sunday's final feels so massive. It's not just about another Masters trophy anymore. It's about history, legacy, momentum before Roland Garros, and proving whether this incredible Sinner run can continue even after surviving one of the messiest matches of his season. Because sometimes championship runs are not defined by the easy victories, they're defined by the nights where everything goes wrong, and the future champion still survives anyway. That's exactly what happened against Medvedev. Now only one question remains. Can Jannik Sinner finish the story in Rome against Casper Ruud? Or did Daniil Medvedev push him close enough to the edge that the final suddenly becomes far more dangerous than people expected? Because after this semi-final, one thing feels certain. The pressure around Jannik Sinner is no longer just growing. It's becoming historic. Tennis IQ is where we break down the rivalries, pressure, and emotional battles shaping modern tennis, and trust me, Sinner's Rome story is becoming one of the biggest narratives in the entire sport.